morning, Dan and Amy. Amy, in Illinois, we don't have a state attorney general that's particularly interested in the enforcement of law. But that's actually not the case in most other states.
No, actually, ours is into crib recalls.
Yeah.
And toy recalls.
Yeah, I mean, if you tear that tag off your mattress, she's all over you. But on bigger issues, sanctuary city designations, of corruption, political corruption, she's kind of AWOL. That's why we like to bring in attorney generals from other states who are actually participating in a meaningful way in the rule of law, both at the state level as well as nationally. And we have just such a person. Also, I think one of a few people in this country who watched the Saints-Falcons game on Monday night instead of the presidential debate, because he is the Attorney General for the state of Louisiana. He is Jeff Landry. Attorney General Landry, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And so you probably didn't catch this because you were watching the Falcons run up the score on your Saints. But during the debate, one of the things that was absent was a discussion of immigration in any specificity, and particularly with respect to cities and counties, as this is the case of Cook, who've designated themselves sanctuary places for persons that are here illegally. You have taken up this matter as it pertains to the city of New Orleans. And why don't you explain your argument to the federal government about New Orleans' designation as a sanctuary city?
Yeah, well, so actually what happened down in the city of New Orleans, the federal government came in, and there was a suit filed based upon the New Orleans Police Department, NOPD's policing practices back a decade or so ago, probably a couple of decades ago. And so there was some civil rights suits filed. And so as a settlement to those civil rights suits, a consent decree was entered into. And as that consent decree was drafted up and agreed several years ago, then Eric Holder, the Attorney General, came down to New Orleans and had, as a part of the consent decree, the New Orleans Police Department's policy. They inserted a portion of the policy that basically prohibited our law enforcement officers in the city of New Orleans from asking or telling or collaborating with federal officials of the immigration status of people that were in their custody. So you can have don't ask, don't tell, or you can have both. And it was both. So police officers in the city of New Orleans were not allowed to ask a person their immigration status. And then even if they found out that the person was here illegally, they were not allowed to collaborate or contact ICE for deportation. That is a public safety crisis.
Even for serious crimes such as attempted murders or murder?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right, because what it does is it confers a greater right on an illegal than it does on an American citizen. It also allows illegal aliens who are criminals to hide. It gives them a place, a safe haven, if you would, because they know that they can roam around those cities, commit minor violations of the law, and never be identified. So this spring, I worked with a state house member here in Louisiana, and we put forth legislation to withdraw the funding of cities or parishes. We don't have counties, we have parishes, right, who engage in sanctuary city policies. It sailed through the House with bipartisan votes and got bottled up in the Senate. We have a Democratic governor here who opposed the measure. But this put enough pressure on our friends back in Congress to work with the Inspector General to recognize that these policies are in flagrant violation of federal law, thereby jeopardizing cities' federal funding. And so that's what I was up on the Hill, because we were able to get the city of New Orleans to basically substantively change their policy.
Have there been high-profile instances of people being victimized by persons that were here illegally, and maybe here illegally multiple times, as like the Kate Steinle case in California and those like it?
Absolutely. Just about 3 weeks ago, we lost a fire chief in one of the parishes in the New Orleans metropolitan area who was killed in the line of duty by an illegal alien who was driving a bus, who had been arrested multiple times on both traffic and major offenses.
And so, it's one of these things where the sanctuary city proponents argue, look, we want to remove violent criminals. The President of the United States has said that. I'm sure Governor John Bel Edwards has said that because nobody wants to be in the position of defending violent criminals who are not being prosecuted or not being deported. So they say, on the one hand, look, if the only thing they've done is to come here illegally, that's different than if they've committed violent crimes. And so we want to remove people who've committed violent crimes. But when you have local law enforcement told to stand down with respect to violent criminals, how serious really are you about removing violent criminals from society?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, look, it's one thing to say it. It's another to put it into action. If you want to take violent criminals off the street, you don't take necessary tools away from law enforcement officers. When in an early age, I was a sheriff's deputy and police officer. And I can tell you, every tool that you can give a law enforcement officer that he has in his arsenal as an effort to take violent criminals off the street, you should do so. This is an extremely necessary tool for them to be able to interrogate people who are in their custody, to be able to identify who they are, and these sanctuary policies prohibit that. And what we've seen is that in cities where sanctuary city policies in effect, crime as a whole goes up. As a whole.
Hello,
and it's
Chicago.
also a national security issue. I mean, look, that means that people who want to come here, foreign terrorists who want to come in to this, who come through the border, okay, because it's so porous, and want to wreak havoc on our citizens here in the homeland, have a safe place to go. Because, look, if they get stopped on the side of the road with a minor infraction, or speeding or running a red light, police officers in those sanctuary cities will not in any way identify them, even if they're on the FBI terrorist watch list. We won't know that they have them.
Heck, they may give them citizenship, we found out.
Or they may even let them vote.
Oh, that could come. So do you believe the Crescent City is a magnet for illegal immigrants now because of Sanctuary City, and same with Chicago, San Francisco? I mean, why not?
Absolutely. I believe any city that engages in sanctuary city policies becomes a magnet. It draws illegal immigrants. But not only does it draw just illegal immigrants, it really draws the criminal element. Because again, if you run a Mexican drug cartel, where do you send your henchmen out there to ply your trade? You send them into sanctuary cities because, again, they will not be identified or deported because basically what this does is this says to the American citizen that, look, if you come into this country illegally, we will not deport you until after you have victimized us.
All right.
Think about that.
Yeah. We know it in Chicago and Cook County, but you're preaching to the choir here. Louisiana Attorney General Jeff Landry, thanks for joining us. Good luck with your little fight effort with the federal government and your state government as well.
Well, thank you, Dan and Amy. It was a pleasure to join y'all this morning.
All right.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.